I'm the #1 citizen of this town, Price, and this town is the county. I reckon you know some of the problems you're liable to run into.
I was born in this town, Mayor.
When you hit a wall you think you can't climb over, dig under, or go through, you come to me. Don't go picking up that phone to call Washington or the NAACP. If you hit a snag, come to me with it first. Might be I can get it unsnagged for you.
What if you can't, Mayor?
How's that?
Suppose I have a problem and you can't help me solve it.
Well, all I'm asking you to do is give me a chance to try. Is that asking too much?
You weren't asking, Mayor. You were telling.
Well, hell, I'm used to telling. I ain't used to asking. Shut up, Jim.
The following film podcast frequently contains adult content, including foul language and descriptions of adult situations. Spoilers for the films discussed occur often. Listener discretion is advised. Now take it away, Dr. Rausch.
They must be destroyed on sight.
All right, it is They Must Be Destroyed on Sight, episode 154, and I am your host, Lee. You can't lead me. I'm the exalted cyclops, Russell. And I am...
Is that a reference to your penis? That's what I imagined. Yeah.
It is going forward.
Oh, okay.
After
awesome.
watching that movie, it is going forward.
Yeah, no.
Meet the exalted cyclops. I always thought the cyclops would be a lot bigger. Well, that's what they all say. And I'm joined by...
I am going to make sure to wrap it in a robe.
I'm joined by my co-host, Daniel. Scratching, chewing, not doing much to speak of. Harper, how you doing, sir?
Similarly, yeah.
Right on. So we're doing some... They're not quite blaxploitation. They're kind of like proto-blaxploitation films, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first one, I mean, it is kind of exploitation, just maybe a little bit early for the kind of genre. And the second is a little bit more in the heat of the night, but with a more of a little bit more of a kind of an action movie verve than so. But they fit comfortably in the in the era and the kind of content anyway. So
right. So we're going to be covering the original Black Klansman, which the modern Black Klansman is much of a remake of this one, as Django Unchained was a remake of the original Django. Let's put it that way. I think.
Right.
Yeah.
And the events that supposedly the events that are depicted in the 2018 Black Klansman hadn't even occurred at the time that this film was released. This is a black guy infiltrates the Klan. It has nothing to do with any of that other story. And stories of people infiltrating the Klan have been kind of big going back to the 30s, honestly. So
yeah, and we're also going to be looking at Tick, Tick, Tick. The stylized title for this, I think, kind of hurts the film in a lot of ways, but we'll get into it.
It makes it very difficult to Google. Makes it very difficult to find any information on, to find it in the Amazon listings, because everything just comes up with the Tick. Unfortunately, there's a super popular kind of cult TV series and a super popular cult TV animated series that go by the Tick. And,
So we do have quite a few comments here, so I'll get through them as quickly as possible. We have some more YouTube comments. We've been getting a lot of them lately. I don't know what the fuck's going on here. It's been a lot more than usual. On our Deathline episode, someone called Uncle A-Land says, I thought it was going to be the movie instead of just two hipster boars talking about it.
Two Hipster Boars is our new podcast subtitle. Although I don't think either one of us are hipsters. Although I do think we're boars. I mean, maybe I think that's true, but
hipsters definitely not. And my only response to this was, I can't help that he's too stupid to realize that it wasn't a podcast, because that episode is 1 hour and 2 minutes. So unless he was planning on seeing like a super sped up version of Deathline. I don't know what the fuck he was thinking. And in the first 30 seconds of the podcast, and he'd have to have listened a little bit in to actually get the two hipster boars talking, it clearly says it's a podcast about movies.
No, I don't.
So, I mean,
whatever.
Congratulations. You're no dumber and no smarter than everyone else on YouTube that I've seen, pretty much. So there you go. Someone called Mike Robinson commented on our Lodger Hangover Square, and he said Laird Krieger was the man. Great movie. And I agree on both accounts.
Wow, look at that. An actual comment. Agreed, sir. YouTube is not a complete cesspool of nonsense.
Exactly. I take back my previous comment. my faith in YouTube commenters has been restored.
It's the one decent YouTube commenter, yeah.
And we have one on our Alien Nation episode from someone called Fiverr's Revenge. And he says, please, am I being out of line by suggesting a timestamp as to when the subject of the show begins? And I replied, no. And in further episodes I post, I will begin providing a timestamp so they can get past the hipster bores talking about their boring lives and get right to the fucking movie, I guess. So, yeah. So that was nice. So, like there's a positive comment. Then there was a constructive criticism. I'm shocked, quite frankly, that I know. Got two comments
look
like
at that. Two decent constructive comments on YouTube in a week. That's astonishing.
Yeah. I've put the gun back into the drawer. I'm not going to kill myself now. It's just
next to the silver star, where you're going to deputize somebody to help you out to take care of the YouTube commenters. Is that the
Unfortunately, it's only hipster bores that are applying for deputy. I want to go across the YouTube lines and get like a real fucking asshole as a deputy, I guess, is what I'm looking to do.
Well, we got all these assholes from Vimeo coming over.
On our Facebook group, They Must Be Destroyed on Sight on Facebook, Jay Deering pipes in and says, this is not a blaxploitation film, but was wondering if you guys had ever checked out Goodbye Uncle Tom from 1971. He says that Black Klansman pick reminded me of it. It's a dramatization of the slave trade, but it's done dead seriously in a documentary style. It is one of the most disturbing movies I've ever seen. Here's a synopsis. And Jay Deering has a taste in really exploitive, nasty stuff, I've come to realize, just based on some of the movies he's asked us to cover. But he says, Italian filmmakers travel back in time. So it's not only an exploitation film about race relationships and slavery, but it's also a time travel film. Italian filmmakers travel back in time to make a scathing documentary about slavery in the American South, with underage rape, teeth knocked out to force feed, mass enemas, massacres of both blacks and whites, bizarre comedy routines, and characters speaking lines from actual pro-slavery texts of the 1800s. This experiment from the makers of Mondo Cane is a baffling mix of tasteless exploitation and biting satire. Wow. And he finishes off by saying, I dig films that are challenging and make you feel like you've been punched in the nuts. This definitely checks those boxes. It sounds like it.
No, I haven't seen that one. So I don't know. Maybe we can look into it.
I don't know if he was requesting it, but maybe we might give it a shot. Where did I put my bottle opener? God damn it! This is great fucking audio right here.
Yeah, showing contempt for the audience, contempt for the commenters.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, that sounds interesting. I'd actually probably be willing to check it out as long as there's no like animals being murdered on screen. This was sort of the norm in this period, but that's Italian filmmaking for you back then.
Those stupid Italians.
Those fucking spaghetti eating assholes. I don't know. Jeff Williams says, I've watched The Black Klansman several times and thought it does feature some shocking brutality. It did seem to miss a lot of the exploitation and thematic opportunities owing to budgetary and censorship constraints. Had the film been produced in the early 70s instead of the mid 60s, it probably would have been much more in your face and packed a stronger punch overall. And I kind of agree with that, but at the same time, I'm kind of familiar with this director's output, and I'm kind of thinking maybe not. He also says, a question for you guys. What is your favorite racial injustice film of the 60s or 70s? And I'll let you answer first, Dan.
God, I don't know. I'd have to.
I mean, In the Heat of the Night's kind of an obvious pick,
Yeah,
right?
In the Heat of the Night's kind of an obvious one. I'm trying to pick one that isn't that, honestly.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you have one? I might need to think on it in a minute, you know?
I had to look a little short list here. I don't know if I could, like,
Sure.
In Heat of the Night is on it.
Yeah.
I was trying to think out of the box, too, a little bit. I was trying to think, it can't all just be black and white racial issues, you know, maybe go into something else. But, I mean, one of these movies, which is, strangely enough, it feels like it's a parody of one of the movies we're doing tonight, Blazing Saddles, I think, kind of fits. Yeah.
No, I definitely had Blazing Saddles feels during Tick, Tick, Tick. So
yeah, another one I was thinking of, even though it's not necessarily in the forefront, I'd say Aguirre, The Wrath of God, definitely has a strong racial issue to it.
Oh, definitely, yeah. Definitely.
There's a Russ Meyer film that he did after he did his 2 studio films called Black Snake, which was his attempt at blaxploitation, and it's essentially like a really trashy version of Mandingo.
Mandingo, but trashier.
Yeah. Well, Mandingo, like Quentin Tarantino is correct in saying Mandingo is basically like a super big budget exploitation film.
Yeah.
But Black Snake
is a fascinatingly awful movie. Mandingo, like it is like I get what they're going for there. That is a really fucked up movie in terms of what they're doing and then what they managed to achieve and what they really should not have achieved. You know?
Yeah. Black Snake is one I'd mention, and that's just a really trashy movie. Like it doesn't take its race relation stuff serious at all. I'd even say, and this is a bit of a outlier, I guess. Like this one's a little bit iffy, but Planet of the Apes.
I mean that's a complicated one, you know, in a lot of ways, but you know, because that's ultimately, you know, you can read that as a, you know, oh my God, the Africans, you know, the simian beasts took over, and you know they ended up being, you know, in charge of taking down the white man. You know, it's kind of a fear of a black planet kind of thing. So you know, that's a. I mean, no, that's another complicated one. I mean, like almost every film from this era has like some, you know, like racial inequality element to it, but that's just the tenor of the times. I mean, Night of the Living Dead fits into that, you know, perfectly well. I mean, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm just not kind of thinking of one off the top of my head that really like you know, hits me. It's like, oh, that's definitely the best one, because there's just so much great stuff from this era. Anything blaxploitation is gonna kind of fit into that.
Blaxploitation, there's some pretty good obvious choices in blaxploitation too. One I would mention that even though it's a film from 1982, it definitely feels like a film from the 70s, and that would be Samuel Fuller's White Dog, which
I don't know that one.
That is a movie about a black dog trainer who is tasked with trying to deprogram a dog from attacking black people because it was trained to attack black people.
Interesting.
So, it's something. I got to say, it's something. I do like that film a lot. Yeah, there we go. That's our questions. So thank you very much, guys. And we can move on to what we've watched in the last little while, and I'll let you go first, Daniel.
Sure. I just have a little quick one, just because I did Zodiac was on Netflix, and so I kind of put on a little bit of that. Mm-hmm. And man, everything that I said about the film in the like 3 podcasts we did about the Zodiac Killer, because we did this one, I did the one with Jack, and then you know, we covered the Zodiac Killer on
BB&BC
on BB&BC. You know, rest in peace, BB&BC, R.I.P. You know,
but he's coming back, so
he's coming back, and we'll see what happens to those archives. Hopefully, those end up somewhere. Pretty much everything I said, I really agree with. Only more so. I'm kind of, and I'm going to make a recommendation here. I mean, if you're listening to this podcast, then there's another podcast that I could recommend to you. The second season of the Atlanta Monster is Monster: The Zodiac Killer. This is a like professionally produced podcast from somebody who's an actual journalist, who's going and digging up some stuff from the Zodiac case, and has interviewed a bunch of the people like Michael Butterfield, who runs one of the big Zodiac sites and that sort of thing, but has also managed to dig up some original archival documentary stuff from the era. Like apparently there's footage of one of the crime scenes that he discovered this year or last year when he was, you know, working on putting this podcast together. It's like supposed to be a 15 episode series, and he's about halfway through it. and it's really quite good. If you want to know the story of the Zodiac Killer and kind of told in kind of doing the opposite of what Fincher does, where what Fincher does is kind of tell the crimes and basically let's just pretend Graysmith do everything. Let's just pretend Graysmith was right. This is really much more about trying to tell the social story, like what's going on around the killings and how it affected people and how it affected the larger culture, while not really moving too far away from kind of the crimes themselves. He interviews a bunch of people who are like experts on serial killers and experts on, that kind of sociopathy, and, kind of has like conversations about that. It's really, really well produced. I usually don't like to recommend any podcast with ads, just because I hate ads in podcasts. I hate commercially produced. I mean, most of the stuff I listen to is like just, people like us just sitting and bullshitting. So podcast has to be really, really good if it's got ads for me to recommend it. And this one I would definitely recommend. So check it out.
And something else I definitely recommend, Blue Chew. Get it now. But yeah, no, that sounds interesting. We'll link it because true crime is pretty big now, and
true crime is gigantic. Serial just blew up the whole like concept of we're just going to do true crime podcasts constantly.
And I mean, they just caught the Earons guy after so many years. That guy who was like a serial rapist. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. Earons, I can't even remember. East something rapist.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't remember. But they just caught that guy. So I mean, you can see where the renewed interest in like the Zodiac comes into play. Even though it's like there's no chance that guy's still alive.
Right. No. I mean, I don't think they'll ever actually be able to give a definitive answer. There was another podcast that Mike Murphy recommended where they went through a bunch of the possible suspects and kind of tried to narrow it down and gave like kind of pros and cons for each. And there were some really compelling names on that list. But I mean, one of them was like 17 years old when the killing started, right. but he also seemed like really, really good for it in a lot of like really interesting ways. It was kind of like on that, that does seem like kind of right there on it. But anyway, it's always fun to kind of think about some of these things. And, it is, I don't know. I like the podcast. I didn't like the movie. I thought, recommend it to the audience who may feel similarly.
I hope they never figure out who the Zodiac Killer was, because I don't want to see Mike Murphy's dad's name get run through the mud. It's just it'll be terrible. A couple films I watched. I'll just mention quickly. I watched this nice little Sam Elliott vehicle called "The Man Who Killed Hitler and Then the Bigfoot," which is. Something. The title.
Oh, that's the title of one film.
The title. Yeah, that's the title of one film. Yeah.
Okay.
And it's basically Sam Elliott as this war hero who kills Hitler, as they say in the movie.
Sure.
And it's not the exploitation film you'd think it is. It's not the weekly world news in the column with Bat Boy kind of thing, the sensational stuff. It's actually like this really slow burn meditation on what it means to be a hero and how useless Sam Elliott's character actually is, because he killed Hitler, but it didn't change anything.
Oh yeah, When was this made?
It was 2018.
Oh, awesome! No, that sounds interesting. I'm definitely on board for that.
Yeah,
the real hero who killed Hitler was, of course, Hitler. That's like the one good thing Hitler ever did was, put a bullet through his fucking brain. But,
it's too bad he didn't do it in jail. In
1924, that would have been preferable.
Yeah. But yeah, it's kind of interesting. It's basically just this like tour de force. Hey, watch Sam Elliott be awesome and just act and be cool.
I am totally down for watching Sam Elliott be awesome. So
because he's aged way better at this point than Clint Eastwood has, as far as some of his later work. And just watching Sam Elliott here is just I could watch this all day. And then it goes on to he basically gets tasked with killing Bigfoot, and that stuff's good too. Like and it's just a minor part of the movie. Like you think, oh, it's going to be this big action film about him killing Hitler, and then it's going to move on to this big action thing about him killing Bigfoot. And it's like, no, it's very minor parts of the film, and overall it's just this big character study of him. Yeah. So it's pretty interesting.
Sam Elliott's like a fascinating guy. I mean, I don't know if you were ever like a Parks and Recreation fan, but he kind of showed up in a little bit of that. He was so the Ron Swanson character, who's like the like kind of ultra libertarian, uber competent, masculine, manly man. Mm-hmm. Well, at one point, all of the kind of characters in the office like meet their counterparts from another town, And so like there's like another kind of version, just kind of another person who kind of serves their purpose in another Parks and Rec department. The other Ron Swanson is also named, I think he's also named Ron Swanson. He's another Ron, but he's like this vegan hippie, you know, like polyamorous, like, you know, bisexual. I just really love going to the parks and, you know, kind of smoking some weed and feeling the grass between my toes, man, you know, and he's just, but also this like totally awesome dude and everything. And, you know, Ron Swanson just like hates the fuck out of this guy. But Sam Elliott is amazing in that role. I just really want him to just show up every week, you know, it's just one of those things.
Nice.
So whenever I think of Sam Elliott, I mean, I know people think like the Big Lebowski or whatever, right. but I'm totally on the no. It's other Ron. Other Ron is my favorite Sam Elliott, you know, bit part in something. So I'm totally down for this. This sounds really interesting. So
nice. The other one I watched, Nicole Kidman in this harrowing fucking Los Angeles crime neo-noir film called Destroyer. This is something. she plays this police detective who 17 years ago was tasked in an undercover operation that basically destroyed her life. And she's been like,
is there a metaphor for marrying Tom Cruise in here? Because I'm feeling like there's a metaphor for marrying Tom Cruise.
Well, thankfully, Nicole Kidman actually is, you know, beautiful and glamorous in real life, whereas she's obviously not destroyed. But where here in this movie, it's like a transformation that's not quite akin to Charlize Theron in Monster, but you see her earlier in the film in flashbacks, and then you see her now, and she's obviously this hollowed out, mummified version of herself that's just sort of walking around, and it's like nothing but like hatred and cynicism is kind of like fueling her. She gets wind of this case that maybe the team of bank robbers that she infiltrated 17 years ago, maybe the leader of that gang is back and operating in the area. So even though she's not on the case, she sort of goes on the case anyway without telling anybody and starts investigating and starts revisiting all of her old contacts and stuff back in the day. She's got to, you know, like face all these people that she betrayed and lied to because she was pretending to be a criminal in their gang and shit, you know. And then there's this whole backstory about what happened to her partner when the whole operation went bad. And it's fucking bleak as fuck, man. Like it is not a fun movie to watch at times, but it's really good though. It's really
that
good.
Sounds good. It's funny, like I so often think about Nicole Kidman as being basically just a like an ice princess for so long. Like she's just been so immaculately, you know, well put together to where like she doesn't seem like she even has pores anymore.
Right.
And she's just kind of like that person in public, and she's been that for long enough. That the idea of like seeing her, you know, like kind of more natural, seeing her more, you know, kind of playing a role again, actually sounds really interesting to me. So, you know, that's awesome.
She throws
and this is playing in theaters right now. Or no, it was.
It might be. Oh. I saw it on Putlocker, but
okay.
But yeah, it's really fucking good. It's going to be on my best of list for this year.
Awesome.
So yeah, good stuff. Two movies to check out. So we're going to take a quick break. We're going to play some podcast promos. We're going to play a little bit of music, and we're going to come back with The Black Klansman.
You go through your week with the same old routine.
What you really want is some blood and thunder in your life.
Well, friend, you found it.
The Cromcast is an adventurous journey through the history of two-fisted pulp stories.
With your hosts, John,
Josh,
and Luke.
We have action,
horror,
and adventure, all through the lens of pulp luminary Robert E. Howard.
Don't just stay in your ordinary life.
Find your pulp life at thecromcast.blogspot.com.
The Cromcast.
The Cromcast.
The Cromcast.
A podcast for the barbarian at heart.
Broadcasting from the cursed earth, the Psychosemantic Podcast.
Let us face, without panic, the reality of our time. The fact that atom bombs may someday be dropped on our cities. And let us prepare for survival by understanding the weapon that threatens us.
To have an ignorant, thin-skinned megalomaniac who sends off Twitters at 3 a.m. if somebody angered him.
Neo-Nazis turning up in Washington, D.C. to have a rally saying Heil Trump.
We talk about politics.
I knew I couldn't trust you corporate greaseballs.
We talk about movies.
You can't come down here and arrest people just because of what they look like. Are you crazy? But that's police harassment.
We talk about political movies.
We're in trouble. The whole world's in trouble. They're all around us and we never knew it. You can only see them with these special glasses.
The Psychosemantic Podcast.
All right. Klansman, a.k.a. I Crossed the Color Line from 1966, directed by Tid V. Mikels, who is probably best known for his even lower budget films after this one. This is like a turning point in his career. This is the last film he did that legit had any sort of budget, I guess. But he's best known for the Astro Zombies and the Corpse Grinders, and he did a bunch of other little exploitation films here and there. Near the end of his career, he was making sequels to the Astro Zombies and the Corpse Grinders and some other stuff. Written by Art Names and John T. Wilson, and this is starring Richard Gilden as Jerry Ellsworth, who, by the way, is a white dude playing a very light-skinned black man.
He's a white man playing a black man playing a white man.
Yeah.
This is the levels of subterfuge that this film, manages to serve to you.
Yeah, we have Rima Kutner as Andrea, Harry Lovejoy as Rock, Max Julian as Raymond, Jackie Deslonde as Farley, James McEachin as Lonnie, Maureen Gaffney as Carol Ann, and W. McLeonard as Wallace. And I'll go to very quick little synopsis of this. Not even
there's not much here.
No. After a black man's daughter is killed by the KKK, he seeks revenge by becoming a Klansman. Yeah, that's kind of it. Although there are subplots in this, and
there are subplots that I tried to watch this a few times, and I kept getting like 10 minutes in and kind of like, all right, I'm here, I'm on this, and then I literally kept losing control of the plot. It was just I'm just like, I know that there's. I don't understand what's going on with the subplots at all. And maybe I just couldn't, my brain just would not follow the logic of what this film was trying to do. It's sort of interesting. I kept rewatching it going oh no, I remember this. I just don't know why it's here.
This is one of these cases of plainly showing that there's two movies here and they're trying to shove it into one.
There's the story of the Black Klansman, of the black guy who's going in and kind of getting revenge on the Klan for killing his daughter. And then there's this other story about this Alabama town that gets invaded by these sort of black radicals, from these black radical gangsters or whatever from New York City or something. Well, the two plots are supposedly intersecting. And I'm kind of I can't follow the twists and turns of it. And it doesn't even feel like it's that twisty turny. It's just, I can't follow it. I just don't know what's happening at any given time.
It's very badly put together is the problem. You have the Black Klansman thing, and that alone should have been your entire plot, right? It should have been about him, because there's a lot of meat there too. You can show their interest in showing the internal politics and the rules of the Klan and all that stuff.
There's probably more Klan lore in this than almost any other film I've seen about the Klan. Honestly, I mean, because they even define what a clud is and that sort of thing. I mean, and the some of the cross burning stuff seems really accurate. I mean, it seems like there's some research that's been done here. There's some effort that goes into it. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
But yeah, you have that plot, and that, I mean, I could see a 90-minute movie made out of that, no problem. Then you have this middle part of the film that diverges, where the black people in this Alabama town that the Black Klansman is coming to take his revenge, they have their own story going on where we got to get rid of these Klan motherfuckers. So we're going to hire these fucking black gangsters from New Jersey or someplace to come in and help us. And the gangsters have their own way of doing stuff. And they're like, well, you guys sit back and we're going to do it our way. And we're going to just kill these white people. And they get involved with the girlfriend and the friend of the Black Klansman at some point, and that's
they
where
even get him tied up at one point or something. Yeah, I'm what's going? Why are you? What is this? I mean, I don't know. I just had a complete. I guess I didn't really miss much. I don't know why it's here.
It doesn't make sense. It's just manufactured drama, really, to try to piece these two narratives together when really it should have been two films, because I want to see both these films. I want to see the infiltrating the Klan, and I want to see the black community in a small Alabama town hiring these black gangsters to fight their war against the racists for them, and the consequences of that. Those are two interesting stories.
Well, and I can see, now that I'm kind of piecing together what the plot was supposed to be, I can see sort of a good version of this where you do get that debate about where our lead here, Richard Gilden, could kind of have the moment of trying to figure out what his place in this world is, as a white passing black man, although Gilden himself is white, but being able to pass for white and kind of getting into this organization, but then what's his role in the larger society, and should he be kind of more on the side of these they're not even Black Panthers, they're just gangsters, it's just should he be more kind of using their tactics, or you could see a really kind of good version of this coming out of it. It just, I don't know, it feels like there's just bits missing from the movie. There's just stuff that wasn't shot or stuff that got edited out or whatever. I mean, so how did you watch this?
I found this on YouTube. There's two versions on YouTube. There's one that runs for an hour, 10 minutes. That's missing 20 minutes of the movie. Then there's one that's split into 6 parts, and that's the one I watched.
Okay. Yeah, I was wondering if you had watched the hour and 10-minute version, because, if so...
that would be super confusing.
I can only imagine what's cut out of that one. This one is on Amazon Prime, so if you're a Prime member, you can watch this. This is the version that I watched. It looked pretty good. It looked like maybe not the best transfer in the world, but it looked pretty good.
The version I watched on YouTube was pretty clean. It looked all right. But yeah, this film wastes so much of its running time with this extra plot,
and it's only an hour 26. It's not even a long movie. I mean, some of the stuff that I liked the best in it actually was him infiltrating the Klan, him kind of meeting up with the Grand Wizard guy, and when they learn to trust each other. That scene where he gets the gun from the guy, and then like later on he ends up like dating the guy's daughter.
That's so weird. It's just like
there's a really weird relationship there where she's kind of like sexually liberated and like, oh no, it's fine. You don't have to come back around. We can just, have fun when you're here kind of thing. And, they don't quite do anything with that, but it's kind of fun material anyway,
Yeah, no, she throws her vagina right at him. Like, it's like first scene.
Like she just pulls it out and hurls it like right at much.
Him. And I mean, if this was, 5 years later, and this was a blaxploitation film straight up, a central part of the plot you kind of feel would be, yeah, not only am I infiltrating your clan and I'm going to kill you, I'm going to fuck your white daughter too, and I'm going to tell you about it later, it would be like an insult thing.
Okay, I apologize to everyone for what I'm about to say. He's infiltrating the clan and your daughter's clam.
That's what he does, though.
That's what he does.
But yeah, I mean, Richard Gilden, he tries, man. I'll give him that. He tries because they put this. I think he's wearing. I don't know where he's wearing the hairpiece. Is the black hair the hairpiece?
Yeah,
like
I get. Well, at one point he pulls off the like white hairpiece,
right? So maybe he's wearing two.
So maybe in that shot he's wearing a black hair, like the frizzy hair, and then on top of that like a toupee. It looks pretty good considering.
It does. The hairpiece actually gets a credit on screen in the film. So it's, I mean, that's pretty good.
Insert William Shatner joke here, But
yeah, but he has the thing that's supposed to clue you into him being black is he's got this beatnik fucking chin beard going on, right?
Yep.
And so he shaves that off, and then he passes for a white man, of course, because he talks just like a white. He talks more like a white man than Ron Stallworth did in Black Klansman. And I mean,
he just had to throw in a couple of Aria, sure.
Yeah, Aria, sure. But man, this movie, I think it's got its heart. It's in the right place.
I think for 66, and this is the height of the civil rights era. It's when they're making this thing too. It's clearly based on some like real stories from just a couple of years earlier. I mean, there's a rip from the headlines feel from this.
Yeah.
Because it is about like a church bombing, and so it is about the 6th Street church bombing, the 4 little girls who were killed.
Well, they show a little girl on screen burning, a dummy, but a little black girl gets firebombed.
No. It's clearly kind of drawing from that. It's also drawing from the murders of Schwarmer and Cheney, in Mississippi.
Okay.
It's literally like drawing from those events just a couple of years later. I mean, so there is a little bit of a sense of, if it was made today, it wouldn't be set in Charlottesville, but it would have, tiki torches and blood and soil and all that stuff, like right in the center of the movie. And it would, just be about that. So, I mean, I give it credit for really kind of like leaning into the topicality and not shying away from some of the horror of that. And I think it definitely, as much as that subplot kind of makes no sense to me, and as much as I found it hard to follow, the idea of giving like African-American characters like this much screen time and kind of giving them this much agency is also kind of unusual for a film of this era. Like you actually see like black people arguing amongst themselves about like kind of the best way to proceed, and that feels kind of ahead of its time in some interesting ways. I hate to think, I don't want to call this a bad film at all. I mean, it was kind of dull for me, and it was kind of poorly constructed.
That's the problem,
But I think it's trying to do good things, and I think it succeeds in a lot of ways. I think it succeeds at least in some ways. It's just kind of a mixed bag. I mean, it's just kind of like, I would find it hard to recommend somebody like, oh yeah, sit down with this and just enjoy it, because I just feel like it's a little bit slow. It's a little bit unfocused in terms of what it's doing. It's got a little bit too much going on, but also not enough going on. But the stuff that works in this like really, really works.
Yeah. If you're just looking for this for exploitation elements, there is some good stuff here for that as well. Just the funny thing, the Jerry Ellsworth character, when he gets back to his hotel room and it's all been rifled through because the clan leader's checking on him to see if he's legit or whatever, and then this thug comes in, I'm pretty sure that guy was wearing a bald cap, so it's kind of funny that a bald cap thug is fighting a guy who's wearing a wig. I just kind of find that fun.
Possibly 2 wigs, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And man, just Jerry's grief over his dead daughter when he learns, like, apparently he's just this layabout guy who probably hasn't even talked to his daughter in a while, because he's just like this reporter or whatever in LA, and he's far removed from that world. But so he's been sort of passing as a white guy in LA. Then he suddenly strangling his white girlfriend.
Oh yeah, God, no. There's that was deeply fucked up right there. I mean, you know, and I mean it is. You know, again, I can kind of say, well, it's trying to portray him as a human being as opposed to like a saint or whatever. And you know, certainly it's a powerful moment in the film, but it's also like, oh man, why? I mean, Jesus Christ, man! You know,
it's like you got to have a little bit of violence against a woman, or it's not going to sell in the theaters.
It's the '60s. We beat women here. It's just, you know,
I mean, he even goes on like he's like, lousy, stinking white bastards, white woman.
You know, I said the thing's heart's in its right place, but you know, it definitely pulls the like, you know, big black hulking brute, angry, you know, character, you know, bit. And for that to be a white man kind of wearing blackface just makes it even worse. And there is another character who I'm pretty fucking sure is wearing blackface, because he meets up with his mom. And like that definitely looked a bit like shoe polish to me.
It looks a little suspect, yeah.
The black and white photography and this kind of like low fidelity. I mean, I'm not saying it was definitely blackface, but it sure as fuck looks like blackface to me.
It looks like she was tanning a little bit, yeah.
Yeah. She's got that Donald Trump tanning lotion, you know, just a little bit extra, you know.
This is the best blackface in this film. It's the best. It's the greatest. Everyone agrees with me. I will say, like,
when they send us their blackface, they're not sending their best. Look at the things we do on this podcast. Why does anybody listen to this bullshit?
So silly. So silly. But I do kind of like that. So his white girlfriend that he throws to the side, you know, and anger and all that shit. There's the black best friend who, and at first it feels like he's frowning on this relationship, and I think I get why. Like at first it's kind of played, oh, you guy pretending to be fucking white and dating this white girl, I really hate you for that. It's pretty obvious he's like, no, I just don't like you dating her because you're a dick, and I can treat her way better. And by the end of the film, it feels like, yeah, these two are going off the fuck later.
It's like, yeah, we're gonna get 2 single rooms, and the guy's like, it's 2 singles, and it's like, yeah, that's not gonna last very long. I mean, there's definitely some chemistry there. I was kind of on board with that. So
yeah, like
she's cute. Like I mean, she was definitely cute.
Yeah, she's this sort of hip, liberated woman for 1966.
Yeah,
you know,
no, definitely. Yeah,
I guess we can't give it necessarily a recommendation, but I mean, if you
one more thing I'll mention just about the ending, you know, here, because I'm gonna spoil the ending here. Big surprise, we spoil the ending like almost every time. It ends up being like this kind of fist fight, kind of shootout thing between like the clan wizard and the grand wizard and our protagonist. So they've got these 2 black men who they're about to lynch, and then, you know, all the other clan guys run away, which, by the way, is not how you combat the clan. You take them all out, not
he should have
killed, you know, or at least he should have, like, you know, you're going to be known in your community now. You should have doxed him or something, you know, but, like, you know, whatever. So the guy, the clan wizard, you know, the grand wizard, he gets in the truck and he like drives off, meaning that these 2 black men just get like slowly hung because, you know, and nobody seems to care about that at all. So that's one thing. The other thing is that at one point our hero gets his hand run over by the truck.
Right.
And then like 2 minutes later, he's just pensively like holding his chin or whatever with it. Dude, no, your hands, you have been crushed.
Yes.
You have, your hand is now a bowl of soup. You know, this
wasn't this wasn't a Dodge Neon that ran over you. This was a truck made out of real metal that ran over you.
Maybe it was just really muddy and the mud was really soft and it just sort of like, you know, that's my but it was like I did have like moments of like that kind of Django feeling of like, you know, oh, they're gonna like, you know, break his hands or whatever, and then like 2 minutes later, it's like, that's fine.
At least Django sold his injuries. He used his flipper hands, one to do the fucking hammer on the gun, and the other one to pull the trigger or whatever. But yeah, and it's funny because he does switch hands with the gun after he gets it, but then it comes back to a shot of him holding the gun in the obviously broken, destroyed hand. So it's
It turns out this was a Superman origin story the whole time.
Right. Yeah, Black Superman, I guess.
A white black Superman. That Superman in this universe doesn't wear glasses; he wears a wig.
And how about the theme song for this, by the way?
Oh yeah, that's a. I hope you give the audience here a little bit of a taste of that, because
that's going to be at the end of the episode, definitely.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, how many of the like fucking westerns made around this time, or even like 10 or 20 years earlier, basically did the same fucking thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're just going to tell the story of the movie and the song, and then the song becomes like a huge hit.
Yeah,
and it does. This is a little bit late for that, but it definitely, it just kind of felt like that to me.
It's kind of a lesson that like later blaxploitation kind of really did learn from Hollywood, white Hollywood back in the 50s. And this is kind of like proto-blaxploitation, so maybe they take some cues from this as well, perhaps. Mm-hmm. The idea of whatever music you're hearing on the soundtrack at the time is explaining what the plot is to the people. Like, and this one basically explains the entire plot. It's like, the Ku Klux Klan killed my little girl, and now I'm going to become the Black Klansman, and it's it's unfortunately a little too upbeat. Like it's kind of like,
but I mean, they were also trying to like make these songs hits. Like they were trying to like make them radio hits and everything, during that era. So I mean, there is some of these things. I mean, even like High Noon, kind of does that. It kind of does that same thing, and so it's a thing. But
it's fun though.
You just expected, and then the truck ran over my hand, but I was shooting 2 minutes later. I'm gonna kill that fucking racist.
I shot the exalted cyclops dead.
And this time I'm not talking about my penis.
There's no fucking budget or
there's very difficult to get information on this. So
and also the DVD is equally difficult to get because the only DVD release for this is from Code Red, which is a very small time sort of boutique DVD company. And if you want to find their DVD from 2011, just go on to fucking eBay and look at the prices. You'll be paying upwards of $120 and that's being generous.
Yeah, well, that's how it goes.
Yeah, so the YouTube broken into 6 parts. Just do it that way if you're desperate enough to watch this. Yeah.
Or again, it's streaming on Amazon Prime right now. I have no idea how long that rights situation is going to last. I imagine this is one of those cheapy, they pulled from the digital copy and it's just going to kind of be there. But
right. All right. We'll play a little bit of music and we'll be back with Tick, Tick, Tick.
You looked upon the city as it crumbled neath the dead. Watched the golden valleys as they turned to crimson red. From the blood of fellow men, and yet you turned your head, and not in all the tears for which you cried. Had a single tear been shed, really shed. Let's give love just another try, for it's too late. In time we found a little peace instead of hate. It took 1,000,000 years to complicate simplicity, when brotherhood's as simple as to start with you and me. When brotherhood's as simple as to start with you and me. Set yourself free, walk with me. The change you've been aware belong in history. Try it and see what peace could be. You better set yourself free. yourself free. Walk with me. Change you've been wearing belong in history. Try it and see what peace could be. You'd better set yourself free. Set yourself free. Walk with me. Change you've been wearing belong in history. Try it and see what peace could be. You'd better set yourself free.
Okay, Tick, Tick, Tick from 1970.
That's my calendar's a liar. This is your last day in office. You're out on your keister tomorrow noon. How's it feel having a nigger take your job?
Welcome to Colusa County, where the world hasn't changed in 100 years. Until today.
John, what the devil's going on?
I don't know, Mayor. I'm not your sheriff anymore. I was voted out of office because I've been a bad sheriff. I was voted out because I ain't colored.
Welcome to the Colusa County Jail, Sambo.
You telling like it is, Hunky?
You white folks, nigger!
Anything happens to this colored boy, we'll have the wash and pickaboos all over Colusa County by sundown.
I'm the sheriff. Not the white sheriff, not the black sheriff, not the soul sheriff, but the sheriff.
Down in Colusa, white folks say Jim Price doesn't know his place. But he does. It's behind the sheriff's badge.
I have to do my own job, Mr. Little. I don't want anybody to do it for me.
You know I'm like a time bomb in this jail.
That nigger's got a white man locked up in jail.
Give me the keys to my son's cell.
Am I supposed to release that boy to them?
We're releasing no prisoners in any Roper County mob. Here they come!
This is what happens in a southern town when law and order is in the hands of a black man. Jim Brown, George Kennedy, Frederick March. Tick, tick, tick. And a town turns into a time bomb.
The most unfortunately named movie I've seen in a while. Like, if they had like an alternate title somewhere that they could have used, I think this movie deserves a lot better than Tick.
It's a pretty terrible title, but I imagine it played pretty well in 1970, and I imagine the poster was really striking and sort of it played up to that like sort of sense of kind of racial tension pretty well, but does not really describe this film. I kept expecting a bomb plot to show up somewhere,
Yeah.
I was like, they're New York City cops, one black, one white. Terrorist, that's a bomb. Like that's kind of where I thought this film was going to go at some point. But no, it didn't do that at all. So
yeah. We'll get into it. Director Ralph Nelson, Requiem for a Heavyweight is the one that jumped out for me on his resume from 1962. He did a lot of other stuff, of course, but that's kind of a biggie.
Charlie is his too.
Charlie, yeah. I had to read that in high school.
Yeah, I have. And he also did a movie called Soldier Blue, which has been on my kind of short list to cover.
I've seen that pop up. Yeah.
No, it's it popped up in my research and when we were doing some other films, and when I saw he did that one, I was like, oh well, that just justifies us, having to cover that at some point. I've just seen it too many times now. Unfortunately, I don't think it's streaming anywhere, which is the only reason I haven't put it on the immediate list.
Maybe Rare Lust has it.
No, I couldn't find it on Rare List. Anyway, we don't. This is behind the scenes bullshit. The audience doesn't need to hear this right now.
Writer James Lee Barrett, you did In the Heat of the Night, did Smokey and the Bandit from 1977, and unfortunately did The Green Berets from 1968, which is one of the worst pieces of shit propaganda films ever made.
Nice.
With John Wayne basically saying the Vietnam War is really good, guys, and all you liberal journalists trying to poo-poo on our imperialism is, you're ruining America, basically.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. So this is starring.
It's what if Patton, but less subtle?
Yeah. So this is starring the great Jim Brown, former football star, who became a big blaxploitation actor as Jim Price. The fucking amazing George Kennedy as John Little. Frederick March, who is fucking Hollywood royalty. Inherit the Wind, anybody? Among a million other things, as Mayor Jeff Parks. Lynn Carlin as Julia Little. Don Stroud as Benji Springer. Don Stroud was in fucking Inglourious Bastards. No, Django Unchained.
Oh, was he really?
Yeah, he was the sheriff they kill. The first sheriff they kill in that town.
Yes. I knew I recognized him from somewhere. Yeah, that's awesome.
He's still got that fucking nose and that sort of leering little stare to him, even in old age. It's kind of Jenna McLaughlin as Mary Price, Richard Elkins as Bradford Wilkes, Clifton James as DJ Rankin, fucking Bob Random from The Other Side of the Wind here in an earlier role as John Braddock. That popped out at me. I was like, holy shit! How do I know that name?
Nicely done.
Yeah, we didn't even plan that shit, and it just happened.
Well, apparently when you do a bunch of films from around the same time, you run into actors over again. Yeah. Weird how that happens.
Yeah, shut up. Mills Watson is
Well, it's almost as if this was made around the same time that Other Side of the Wind was. I don't know. What a shock.
Fuck off. It's not like he did a lot of stuff.
No, I'm with you. No, it's
Mills Watson as Joe Warren and Bernie Casey as George Harley. Revenge of the Nerds, Bernie Casey.
Yes.
Yeah.
And many other things, yes.
Yes, Revenge of the Nerds. Come on.
Because we covered that one, so we might as well just bring in all of our old episodes, go back and listen to them all twice.
Exactly, yes. So, synopsis here from someone called Louis Carvaccio. Says, this is the story of a black man who's been elected sheriff in a U.S. southern county due to the vote of blacks. He receives a huge amount of hostility from the non-tolerant white establishment, making his job very hard. The white former sheriff has his own struggle as he balances his devotion to the law with his family and community relations. Things come to head when the black sheriff puts a white man, the son of a wealthy landowner of a neighboring county, in jail, and his daddy comes after him. Everyone around him has to decide where their values really lie. And yeah, I guess that kind of explains the plot.
Yeah, pretty well.
But what did you think of this one, Dan?
I really like this. I think this is really well done. I was kind of expecting, going into it, kind of a exploitation, kind of fun action adventure kind of thing. This is much more. It's sacrilege. Maybe. I think it might even be better than In the Heat of the Night. Honestly, in terms of telling this kind of story.
I found it was close.
I'm sorry. Oh, yeah.
I found it was very close.
This is possibly on my best of the year list.
It's on mine.
We'll have to see kind of what other good stuff happens between now and then.
Already getting too much good stuff. Like my list.
No, that's kind of the problem we've hit this year. We've actually, it's funny when we actually watch good movies, we suddenly, our best of the year list gets harder. I really enjoyed this. I was kind of joking around about I was kind of expecting a pot boiler about some bomb going off or something. A lot of times when I get these recommendations, I try to I like going in a little bit blind and just kind of hit play on the movie and see what it does. As opposed to kind of watch the trailer trailer ahead of time and kind of read it. And, I like to just kind of sit down and watch it. This really, I was struck by how good the performances are. I was struck by, how everyone in the film does have, kind of a chance to breathe. There is some really nice character work that's been done here. I like the slightly smaller stakes here. I like the fact that, essentially the basic thrust of the plot is, you don't even really get to like the central like conflict until more than halfway through the film,
Last half hour, really.
The last half hour, really. Basically there's just like, oh, we got a bad car accident, you better come in here. And then, it's really obvious kind of what happens. Then it turns out, this is the son of some bigwig in the county next door or whatever who's going to come after him, break him out of jail, essentially.
Turns into Rio Bravo in the last 30 minutes, basically.
Yeah, it does. And then it's really just, that High Noon connection, because it really is, about like this guy trying to go around and, finding a way to, kind of get the community to support him. And where High Noon kind of is like telling the story of the sheriff who is disgusted by his profession because, officially in the film, the townspeople will not support him because they're all a bunch of cowards. But as I think we discussed in our episode on High Noon, our narrative that he's a shitty person. He's just kind of a shitty person and they don't want to get involved in his, girlfriend drama or whatever. But in this film, it's about like the community kind of coming together, and you get they're over racist dickbag clan guys, are effective clan guys who go up against kind of a shaky but kind of multiracial coalition. It's kind of amazing at doing that. It was really effective in the way that it tells this story. Anytime you make a cop a hero in my book, and certainly from 2019 standards, I think we need to be very suspicious of any narrative like that. Also, when it's, the old cop is definitely not a racist. And he is portrayed as not a racist. Oh, and the mayor, also not racist. Yeah, he's just a cool guy. He's just like, he's totally wanting to be there, with this new, he really wants to support. Like, this is not the experience that like African Americans had when they entered these kinds of situations for the first time. Blazing Saddles, much more accurate, but
yes.
that's one thing about Blazing Saddles gets right. Everybody was horrifyingly racist. that was true.
Leave it up to a Jew to actually know what horrifying racism actually is, and,
right? While also depicting a bit of it himself. It's just, but No, I thought this was really well done. I think it was an hour, 37 minutes long. It doesn't waste a minute of that. It's got one really nice chase sequence that I thought was really enjoyable, kind of in the middle of the film. If the guy is supposed to be as drunk as we kind of think he is, I doubt that he seems a little bit too athletic in that moment to, he's a little bit too coordinated, but maybe he wasn't all that drunk to begin with, so who knows?
He might be on something else too, whatever.
Great to see, Jim Brown, it's no shocker that, former like NFL guy Jim Brown can run like the wind. There are a couple of shots of him running that are just like, oh, like that is phenomenal.
You can kind of see it also plays into the narrative of the film of how intimidated and spooked forgive that term I just used. I was not a pun.
Oh well, Lee, call a spade a spade. That's just,
But to see how dumbfounded and afraid the sort of white community is by him, because he's this big hulking muscular dude. No one's going to fuck with him overtly. They're not going to fuck with him. But yeah, no,
I'm kind of amazed when people do like try to fuck with him, and it's like, oh, this is Jim Brown, motherfucker. And yet he's kind of like, he knows he has to kind of keep the peace. He knows he has to. He's not unwilling to use force if he has to, but so much of what he does is just trying to de-escalate and just trying to be the kind of like sane, reasonable, collected kind of guy. Like keep us cool all the time. And it does. When we did the Spike Lee Black Klansman, they kind of, it's like, well, what would you do if, a white officer called you the N-word or whatever? And, how would you respond to that? And, he's got to kind of keep us cool. And this is, a film made, in the period that's like showing that same phenomenon. And that's kind of tone policing. And it's kind of, obviously there are whole conversations around that, but I think it's really well executed here. And I think that you can have, kind of questions about the way that the film kind of treats the police and the kind of the value of the police in the situation, but also really respected as sort of a, you know, I don't want to say realistic, but certainly a plausible kind of story of like what this one guy might have gone through, you know.
Yeah, I think going back to our conversation on Black Klansman in the previous episode, this definitely takes the side of working within the system to change the system. Mm-hmm. So Jim Brown is definitely totally on, like he comes from a military police background in the film. Mm-hmm. So he already knows how to work. I mean, it's not like black soldiers even in the 1970s were getting all that much respect, you know. So
I mean, they were just dying in Vietnam. That was the I mean, you know, that was the whole phenomenon there, you know.
So
just go. Let's just pile your corpses into rice paddies. Like that's the you know, that's essentially the role of African Americans, and you know,
basically this is an example of the sort of turning tides of the civil rights movement depicted on film, where the blacks apparently come out in record numbers to vote in a new sheriff, and
this would have been like pretty much immediately after the civil rights era, like the Voting Rights Act and all that, you know. And so this is suddenly like, no, this is sort of the tale of the end of Jim Crow, and
you see this like this town full of, oh man, the way this film depicts heat is like on par with Stray Dog.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I mean, the opening scene is a bet over whether they can fry an egg on the pavement. Yeah, and it's great. And fucking, so there's all these sweaty, lazy Southern rednecks who are just looking around, and you know half of them didn't vote at all. Like they probably didn't bother to vote. They were just apathetic. Like they didn't come out and vote because they figured, oh fuck, this is the system. This is the way it's going to be. Little's going to be reinstated as sheriff, and everything's going to be status quo. It's going to be fine.
Yep.
And no, the black vote comes out and they get a black sheriff in there, and all of a sudden the entire community is thrown on top of its head. Like it's just turned over.
Yep.
I think George Kennedy is fucking amazing in this. This is like an Oscar-worthy fucking performance, I think. Is this like decent man who has, you know, he's also one of these townspeople. He's one of these apathetic guys who's sort of been lazing about, this is the system and this is the way it's always going to be. But he finds himself voted out, and he's suddenly pulled between the racism in this county and doing the right thing. Many of the whites who once supported him, now they look at him as like a quitter and a traitor and a coward. And I mean, initially through the film, it's a very much his story where it's like his ego is hurt and he doesn't understand like his own place in the sort of system that sort of kept black people down.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very much about him like kind of owning up to the fact that, yeah, I was a part of this and I shouldn't have been. And he becomes a better person by the end of it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't know, like how much of that is you know, do you think in the film? Because I mean, I see him as being kind of like, it's definitely true. I mean, you know, like it's just true by definition. I mean, you know, I see him more as like not like kind of questioning his own role as much as just like trying to, you know, kind of like more of a personal, when he loses the election, like he kind of wants to be magnanimous and he wants to kind of be the bigger man and he wants to shake his hand and kind of show him around the office. And then he says, when I was confronted with him, I just couldn't. And I just kind of walked away. And that's, you could say like some racial animus there, but I think that's also just, you know, there's definitely sort of a racial resentment there, but I mean, I don't know that that's you know, that's just, you know, I had this nice job and I thought I was doing a really good job at it. And then suddenly I get kicked out for reasons that, you know, aren't really under my control at all. You know?
I mean, his pride is hurt. And at first he makes excuses because the first excuse he tells his wife is, I didn't get voted out because I was bad at my job. I got voted out because I wasn't a black guy. Like,
yeah.
That's the first excuse he makes. And then his wife laughs at him. And he realizes how fucking stupid he sounds saying that.
Right.
Like he realizes, like his wife basically is the voice in his head, basically telling him, you know, no, you're an idiot. Shut up. And
of course, later on, she ends up being the one like telling him not to go and do a certain thing because, you know, oh, they're going to call you an N-word lover, you know, and, you know, like it kind of gets, you know, the complicated interpersonal dynamic there of, you know, like, I want you to not be an open bigot, but like, I mean, there are limits here, you know.
Yeah,
you can't go and like now be that guy's deputy because, you know, like that just doesn't look right, you know.
Yeah, but I mean, deep down, he's a decent guy, and he's not overtly a racist, but he has bought into the society where black people are treated as second-class citizens. And he learns to accept that he was wrong to do that. And he sort of faces his own prejudice and becomes a better person for it, which is pretty interesting to see in a movie around this time. And I think also the mayor character, Frederick March, as Jeff Marks. I love his
so much fun. He was so much fun in this film.
So matter of fact, like he says everything he's thinking. He doesn't care for bullshit. So he's just, oh no, you're a fucking asshole, and I'm going to tell you right to your face, you're a fucking asshole. I love how he smokes secondhand worm-eaten cigars.
Yeah.
It's like, what the fuck? It's just a nice little character thing. But he also, like, I mean, this guy's got a tattered fucking Confederate flag over his mantelpiece. But even he realizes this shit's done. We have to move on, kind of thing.
Yeah, so, no, that felt like an actual battle flag or something. Like that felt like a piece of legitimate history. And I mean, but this time is over. We've got to kind of move on. And I mean, a mayor of a small southern town around this time, like, is nowhere near that decent a human being. But you do when you look at the history of the civil rights era, you do find some people who, did kind of turn on a dime and just sort of like it was explained to them like how bad these things really were, and they did, legitimately make strides and make the world a better place, So I mean, it's not unheard of. It just kind of feels a little implausible, but
that's the thing. Like, if one thing I'd say about this film that's kind of a detraction from it is there is a pretty big blanket of sort of naivete on it. Overall, like it's a little too positive at the end. Like, I mean, he's hinted at one guy who's the sort of town leader who's hinted at being like a Klan member.
Right.
He comes to the side of the black sheriff at the end, which is like, I don't buy that for a second. So either he wasn't actually involved with the Klan, or he's ex-Klan and he's not involved anymore. Or it's just like that's the convenience of the plot.
Some of these guys also, just sort of. I mean, by the time after 1965, the murder of those 3 civil rights workers, and then kind of the passing of the Civil Rights Act. I mean, the Klan itself became like deeply unpopular for like basically the rest of till today. The Klan is still not like a popular institution. I mean, there's a little bit of a resurgence in the 70s, but that's more, kind of the suit and tie Klan. That's kind of more the David Duke. We're not actually going to wear the robes. We're just going to kind of like call ourselves this thing. But I mean, the reality is that the optics of that just kind of died. And I mean, a lot of these guys, I mean, they did kind of get with the program because, well, if we can't, if you can't beat them, join them kind of thing. And just kind of like it didn't necessarily kind of change their views, on the inside, but, we're willing to kind of, they knew which side of the bread there was buttered, like, so. The
movie kind of places, like, it doesn't really put a judgment on the guy. It becomes like a county against county thing. We'll get these fuckers from the other county out of our county. Like, they're not going to mess with our black boys.
Those are the overtly racist people, and we can just be covertly racist and just sort of, and that's kind of another dynamic that's kind of going on in these things. And I mean, the reality is, if we're there are a whole bunch of racist people in this country, and there's a whole lot of that shit going on, and if we're all gonna live together and try to like share some government and like share some resources, like to a certain point, you got to kind of shrug your shoulders and say, okay, we're good enough for now, and I think that's it would be nice if everyone would be like super 100% woke all the time, but also like, and I think that's the thing with working within the system. And I think that's the thing that like Jim Brown's character just kind of realizes is like, you don't have to like me. I mean, the white people in this town do not have to like me. They can be racist, but they are going to respect me. And, I'm going to be the sheriff for all of the townspeople and not, because that's the thing with Bernie Casey's character with George Harley.
Yeah.
Sorry, there's a political science writer that I follow who kind of like tracks the far right, named George Hawley with a W, not an R. And so I kept thinking of this guy every time we saw George Harley. Anyway, Bernie Casey's character, is like, well, now we're going to be on top of him and we're going to, beat down the white guys. I mean, it is kind of that, like, the Killmonger kind of character, and in Black Panther,
Black
that
Panther,
kind of concept. Yeah, I mean,
well, yeah,
not to bring it back to kind of that sci fantasy kind of thing, but I mean, that the fact that this kind of debate was very real at the time of, like, well, now that we've got some authority, what's the role of this, and what do we do about it now? And I mean, that's definitely something that the film is kind of playing with.
Yeah, well, I mean, Jim Brown finds himself with the black community in the same position that George Kennedy does, where as soon as he becomes sheriff and the blacks are like, okay, let's go after this white guy and kill him for his crimes or whatever, let's get him. And he's like, no, we got to stand down. We gotta go by the rule of law. And it's like, oh, you fucking dog of the white man, basically thing.
Yeah, no, they pretty much use that term. Yeah, and then later on, when there's a rape reported, when Bernie Casey gets accused of rape, and he has to kind of go after him, and you can't just rape 15-year-old girls and get away with it. Like, it doesn't. I'm not going to turn a blind eye to that, and I think that's a kind of interesting character dynamic. It's a shame that doesn't really come back. I mean, it's just sort of like a little brief subplot. I mean, the only thing I can, again, kind of to make the sort of like the more black radical character, the kind of the guy who's, more on we're going to get justice for ourselves, and then just kind of also, well, yeah, but he's also like a rapist, so clearly he's a bad guy too. It is kind of putting its thumb on that scale a little bit too hard, because while I disagree with that kind of point of view, I think that you don't have to literally make him like a child murderer or rapist to sell that, right?
Yeah, because early on he applies to become one of
the deputies.
Yeah, and he's like, I'm not going to make you a deputy because you're looking to get this badge just so you can beat on white people. Like, that's all you're looking to do, And I mean, the deputies that George Kennedy has before he retires or is taken out of his position, they're pretty much the same. They're like they're there to abuse their power. The guy who's sitting on the highway there just looking to pull over anyone coming in from New York, basically.
Yeah.
So, and the other guy who ends up being the ending villain, like the secondary antagonist at the end of the film, who's like this crack shot who's just looking for an excuse to shoot somebody. I mean, he even makes a stink early on that he's still carrying his gun after he becomes de-deputized. And he's like, I dare that black sheriff to come into this pool hall and try to take my gun from me, kind of shit,
Yep. And then George Kennedy hears that, and he takes care of that situation in a nice way. I thought like kind of pretty cleverly done, a way that without kind of robbing the authority of the sheriff, but also kind of taking care of a situation. And I mean, and this is also like the fact that George Kennedy's character walks away without really kind of like leading into that kind of institutional knowledge. I mean, the thing is that he's been the sheriff for a while. He knows everybody. He knows all the the history of the townsfolk. Jim Brown's character doesn't have that information kind of coming in. And it's a detriment, but that's not a detriment because like Jim Brown is not like a good sheriff necessarily. It's just a marker of this is just the transition of power, and this is just sort of the way that these things go. And ultimately, we're all supposed to kind of work together in terms of making sure that justice prevails, regardless of how we feel about kind of individuals or whatever. So.
Yeah, it's good though. Like George Kennedy at the end, he becomes his deputy, and after he stops being sheriff, he's looking at not having a career. Like he's in dire straits. He's always kind of expected. This is the way it's always going to be. I'm always going to be elected sheriff, and I can retire, comfortably. But that he finds himself like a 40-ish, 50-ish year old dude sitting here at the end of his career all of a sudden without much savings and no prospects to become anything else, because he tries to apply for like the highway patrol, and it's like all they're hiring is like 20-year-old guys,
I mean, there is a little bit of like the reality is like a beloved sheriff who who loses an election, and he goes off in a private practice somewhere. He like probably he runs a security company or something, and that's just
they show like there's this little comedic part of his home life that's shown where he's just like perpetually bored because he does every chore that needs to be done around the house in one day, basically.
Right. Yeah. His wife is like, oh, there's a there's a gutter that needs to be nailed up. I took care of that. Oh, there's there's a squeaky hinge, and I did that yesterday too.
Yeah.
He's just kind of he just takes care of everything, and then he's just like, now I'm just like bored of life. I just don't have, And he just goes fishing. I love that, even when even in that like kind of big action scene that we mentioned earlier, when he finally like catches up with the guy, it's like George Kennedy's like out there fishing.
Yeah.
Like, well, that's convenient.
Yeah.
Jim Brown's like, here, hold my gun, and then like dives in after it.
Yeah.
Nice that this guy was here and not, some other asshole.
But yeah, I really like this one. I think this is fucking great.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of we've kind of covered it. I don't know. I mean that there's a whole lot else to it. Really well done. Lots of great performances. See it definitely. Thank you for thanks to the listener for recommending it.
Yeah, Jeff Williams recommended this one. Great pick
for once.
No,
I'm kidding.
His fucking taste is great. Everything he suggests is interesting. So
I'm just fucking around. It's fine. No,
I do have box office on this, at least a fraction of it. Box office for U.S. Canada rentals, so I assume that's like theater rentals, was 2.1 million, and it must have done way better than that overall. So I mean, this one must have been at least some sort of success. I can't see it costing too much.
This feels like something that probably was it made its money back at least. I mean, probably not like a huge blockbuster hit, but also feels like this kind of topical. I mean, it's able to be sort of a topical movie and be kind of commercially accessible at the same time, which is always kind of a challenge. So.
DVD Info, Warner Home Video in 2012 released a DVD, and that's basically it for this. I downloaded this from Rare Lust.
Rare Lust had it. Okay, no, I didn't even check. The again, if you I do try to like buy these or rent them, on just to particularly the more obscure titles. I feel like the more people like I'll pay the $3 and like have it for a day, and it'll be. It'll be fine. Not that I really like giving Amazon like too much more of my money, but I'm happy to sort of like put a little bit of money where my tastes are, and to try to put that in a metric somewhere. But no, this is if you have the brown sugar, I think is what it's called, like channel subscription. On Amazon. It's like I did the like 7-day free trial, and it's like $4.99 a month after that or something. And it's got like a bunch of the blaxploitation stuff from what I looked at, but it is like included with that, so I just did that. And that's how. So if you are looking for the legit way to see it, that's a way to see it.
Nice. So next week we're going to be looking at Isaac Hayes in Truck Turner, which is nice. I think going to be fun. We're going to go back to some real exploitation. This one's full of blood. It's full of violence and sex and all kinds of good stuff. And
awesome.
Yeah, and killer soundtrack as well. So Daniel, where can people find you on the interwebs?
Well, you can find me on the internet. I am at Daniel Lee Harper on Twitter. I do have a couple of other podcasts. Well, one kind of big one that's kind of going right now. I Don't Speak German, where I talk about the worst people in the English-speaking world with our buddy Jack Graham. I think a lot of the people that are listening to this have already kind of heard me talk about it, so I'll kind of leave it at that. But you can check me out there. And I also recorded this afternoon before we got down here. I did record an episode of the Psychosemantic Cast or the Psychosemantic Podcast. I don't know what he calls it, but
he changes it every week.
He changes it all the time. So anyway, no, I did record an episode on the 1998 film Pleasantville, which was a fun conversation. I think he was really happy with that, and he says it's going to be out kind of end of February, early March. So
nice.
We got a little bit of time before that gets released, but keep an eye out for it. And once it shows up, I'll make sure to plug it again. So
yeah, and I'll just for the fuck of it in the show notes, I'll throw a link to Psychosemantic Podcast anyway, just because Darren Wilson's awesome and he has a great podcast. So
yeah, that is. I've been listening. I went through some of the archives on that in the last week or so, and that's a really fun podcast. So
Yep. You can find us at tmbdos.podbean.com, where you can find our Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and Facebook links. Join the Facebook group if you want to find out what's coming up on the podcast and talk with some like-minded people who, we don't have a massive community like some podcasts, but we do have a really cool community. No assholes, no dicks, just some fun little conversations every once in a while pops up, and some movie recommendations and stuff like that. So
it's a fun place to hang out, and we recommend we like it when people comment more. So come in, and if you got something you want to say to us, then that's a good place to do it. Other than besides YouTube comments,
that's I was about to say. It's like, get us away from the YouTube comments. Make more comments in the Facebook group, so I can read those, because the people who make the comments in the Facebook group are actually intelligent and know what they're fucking talking about, other than the clueless little children who walk into the theater halfway through the movie and make a fucking comment on the YouTube fucking versions of her fucking podcast. The fucking idiots. You have no comment for that, Just
you see, Lee goes through and like collates all these comments every week. I just kind of listen to Lee talk about it, and then I just make a snarky comment. But Lee actually has to follow this stuff, and I feel for him. We should all feel for Lee in this. So
that's that. If you really want to feel for us, donate to our Patreon. Oh no, we don't have one. I'm sorry.
I do have a Patreon, and if you want to donate to it, you can. But
donate to Daniel's Patreon. I
just realized, I was just looking at you in the monitor. You've got that same like chin beard that the protagonist of the Black Klansman did at the beginning. So
Daniel,
if you were to just you get a wig, and you could definitely infiltrate the Klan. Is what I'm saying.
Well, Daniel, if you didn't know, I'm 1/32nd Cherokee.
I believe you.
No, I'm not. I think I might have some Micmac blood in me somewhere in my family, but it's mostly Irish and Scottish.
Yeah. No, I don't know what my exact thing is like, but like every person in the North America is told, or at least in the English in the United States and Canada, I think it's told like, oh yeah, we've got a Native American ancestor a few generations back, and I mean it's really not nearly as true as often as as it's claimed to be. It's sort of like one of those, like it's a way of like justifying, I think, the genocide. Like, oh no, we've got an ancestor back there. That's of course we all just no. All those people were murdered by disease and muskets, so our rifles. Like it was fine.
I'm a lily white person, and I have no fucking pride in that. Let's just leave it at that.
Fair enough.
So thank you everyone for listening. Thank you, Daniel, for joining.
This is a podcast that doesn't always go to genocide, but sometimes we just throw it in at the end.
It's one of our constant asides, I think.
We're gonna do sex comedies next time. We're gonna be like, and then our boobs were great, and also genocide, a little genocide.
Yeah. It's like some stereotypical Asian character in a 1980s sex comedy. By the way, the Japanese killed this many Koreans. Let's re-hammer that point through. Oh, by the way, titties. But yeah, that Japanese character, he's indicative of the Japanese imperialist system that killed millions of Koreans and.
Oh, look, Ginger Rapist has a van. Speaking of rape, have you heard about the rape of Dan King? Because that was terrible.
Oh, fuck. Okay, we're done. Goodbye,
we're done.
Everyone.
Cheers.
The Ku Klux Klan killed my little girl. Now I'm alone in this hostile world. My plan for vengeance may seem odd, but with the help of God, I will destroy him from within. Disguise myself and be the Black Klansman, and the Klan will ride this night, living their big life, burning cross upon a hill, guiltless people die. Why can't they learn to love and understand what type fool could find good in the Klan. My life will not be complete till the Klan has their defeat. I will destroy them from within, disguise myself and be the Black Klansman. Disguise myself and be the Black Klansman. Disguise myself and be the Black Klansman. Disguise myself and be the Black Klansman.
You have been listening to They Must Be Destroyed on Sight. For other episodes, our links to Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and our Facebook group, as well as links to podcasts and websites of similar interest, please visit us at tmbdos.podbean.com. Thank you. Drive through.